TCH, is there really no one suitable to be team leader besides the few of them? I think Wang Jung is suitable. If Wang Jung is unwilling, even I would do it, Zhang Shan said. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then they burst out into laughter. All right, I also came because I wanted to be a team leader, but for now let's be real and think of a way to get into a team. That's the only way we can have a chance to qualify and see what the outside world is really like, Yuan Yi said. He had to decide. Should he go to the moon side or the Mars side? Both sides still had space. If they waited for others to defect, they would have no place and would definitely be eliminated. In fact, results were not even the most crucial factor. But words were just words. In the current situation, Zhang Shan was frustrated and unwilling to wait. Originally, it was an uncomplicated battle of skill. However, now it had evolved into a matter of team politics. This was unfair from the start. The military had favored some Academy X students too much, to the point that the rest were left out. It had now come to the point where the majority had no choice but these select few. The problem was, they were four, and it seemed unlikely that a team could take in all of them. Why do we have to depend on others, anyway? If our own abilities are insufficient, then elimination is a matter of course. If we are strong, then we won't be taken down, Meng Tian said dispassionately. In this team, Meng Tian and Zhang Runan had options available to them. It was Wang Jung and Zhang Shan that would face problems. Wang Jung smiled. It's not a bad idea to take care of ourselves. I approve of Meng Tian's view. TCH, I'm Zhang Shan. I fear nobody, this brother is a future general, a rising star in the army. Zhang Shan blustered. They would definitely be full of tricks, and in actuality no one knew what the army's criteria were. Thinking that a position was set in stone for them by following a particular team was merely wishful thinking for those present, as things would still change. Rather than overthink things, it would be better to elevate oneself through proper training. Every step of preparation is meaningful. The long trek this time around also got us more familiar with the Mecca. Haven't you all realized that the sense of foreignness has disappeared and that the Mecca are like old friends? Zhang Runan asked. It was indeed as she had pointed out. Previously, Mecca were Mecca, tools, but after experiencing the long march, especially weathering the sandstorm, they had become more attuned to their Mecca and were clearer and more familiar with the fine details. This was a skill of experience, which was not something any book or instructor could teach. It was a realization that each individual had to find out for themselves. The training had been the same. Some people had been resentful, some grew closer, some had built networks, while others were only just beginning to realize its purpose. We should rest early. Tomorrow will not be easy. The two girls could not wait to take a bath. These 5 days had been tough. There had been a huge stir in the music scene recently. Lin Weiyan's latest single had met with a disaster akin to the Battle of Waterloo. After its chart debut at 6th place, it had fallen to 18th within a week, causing a huge commotion. For an Aslan princess to achieve a string of successes within the music industry with nothing but her own effort had earned Lin Weiyan the title of perfect. Every new song was met with strong anticipation, and expectations of her grew steadily. But one could not strive thus forever. Humans were not gods. Furthermore, Lin Weiyan's presence ticked off some of the industry bigwigs. Why would a princess come to snatch jobs from them? She had brought quite a few inconveniences upon them, but they could not lay a finger on her, for fear of the fan army's vengeance. The music industry was cutthroat. Of course, her status as a princess meant that the taunts would be suitably dressed up when her downfall came. Hello, everybody, you're tuned in to Music Stage Vivi, and I'm your host, Ayla. Today we're especially fortunate to have the Prince of Music, Robert, as an honored guest at Vivi. Robert, I'm sure you've heard the latest hot news in the music scene, that Princess Weiyan's illustrious career has finally hit a snag. What are your thoughts on the song, Love Affinity? Well, all in all it's not bad, if a little ambitious. She's tried to express too much in the song and ended up cluttering its meaning. Music making requires a certain composure to it. That's quite right. Robert's opinion is held by the majority as well. This song has fallen short of her usual standard. It seems like young people would do well not to be too reckless. The host smiled. This was on Arbiter, which was similarly a large empire. They would not bother too much with Lin Weiyan, although it was the hot topic even in Arbiter Entertainment. Yes, that's what I think. I feel that Wheein should take some time to consolidate her work. Just doing the same things over and over again will get old very quickly. This music update has been brought to you by Music Stage Vivi. Now, on to the next topic. Our very own Arbiton Robert, the real prince of music, has a new upcoming album. Click. Yi Zisoo switched off the Skylink program. Virtually every television channel was the same. Only the Aslan television channels continue to support Wheein. Only, the quality of the song was indeed different. In truth, the new single was not as bad as it was made out to be, except that the first few were written from the heart, while the latter were written by the brain. These were less stirring, and the more brilliant the first few songs were, the more apparent that this one was a flop was. Beep beep beep. The Skylink entered a designated group and let out an alert tone. Someone had started a group chat. It was a music club. Did everyone see the Vivi Music Stage program just now? It makes me so angry to see Robert trying to step on Princess Wheein to further his own status. And the audacity to call himself a prince. It's bad enough that he looks plain, but to put on such airs. The diva group leader was laying into it with fang and claw. Yi Zisoo said reasonably, everyone has unrealistic expectations of Wheein. If one puts them aside, the single is actually not bad. Isn't it? I think so too. Oh, looks like a new participant in the club. Not bad, not bad. As long as you continue contributing actively and meaningfully, if Lin Wheein ever comes back to Earth, no, to the solar system, there'll definitely be a club ticket with your name on it. The group descended into chaos again with a roar, evoking many members to clamor for all kinds of freebies and services, especially the male members. Shut up. Today's mission is a community war against those that are bad-mouthing Wheein. Yi Zisoo smiled. She had received her mission, and the rules had been relaxed. She was just about to use her account to go on the designated music forum when the Skylink emitted a special ringtone. I'm still waiting on my tiptoes. It was from her composition, I Really Miss You. This song's ringtone had been exclusively designated to two people. One was Wang Jung. The other was Lin Wheein. Flipping open the Skylink, it was Wheein's communication. No surprises. She connected the Skylink to see Lin Wheein's smiling face. Zisoo, it's me, I'm bored, what are you up to? I'm preparing to go to war for you, the loyal fan that I am. Yi Zisoo laughed. What war? Lin Wheein perked up in an instant. Truth be told, the situation was complicated. On one hand, she supported her sister Aina. On the other hand, Zisoo was her sister's love rival. But Wheein really liked Yi Zisoo, especially her understanding of music. Put simply, she knew what was up. The High Music Society has started posting and replying. Lin Wheein listened for a while, and her eyes widened. Isn't this one of the fabled internet flame wars? In faraway Aslan, in a unique recess room, Lin Wheein was huffily reading through an endless string of posts. Although she knew deep down in her heart that her new single had issues, she still felt defensive reading through all kinds of slander. On the occasion that a supportive fan stood up for her, the following posts were all filled with, another brainless fan? Her fans were not brainless. Lin Wheein blinked. In truth, she did feel a little slighted, but she was largely unafraid of harsh criticism. But she was looking for constructive feedback after the scorn, not pointless abuse and jabs. Nor did she wish for her fans to be insulted thus. Why would they be that happy that her songs were not doing well? All she wanted was to bring the joy of music to everybody. Zisoo, what do you think romance is? She was still sore about her loss regarding the song, Love Affair. Deep down, Wheein had a streak of pride, especially concerning her musical talent. This was not something bestowed upon her by her status as a princess, but a result of her own efforts, and she would not admit defeat easily. On the other side, Yi Zisoo pondered the question with a smile, simplicity. Simplicity, in Lin Wheein's mind, romance was a raging, surging torrent of emotions, a collision of stars. She thought of the classic romantic tragedy between the shepherd and the weaver. It's not complicated. As long as you have that feeling, then it's a good memory, regardless of the outcome. What else? Do you mean to say that people can be happy even if they're not together? I don't get it. Lin Wheein's interest peaked. It suddenly occurred to her that this was creative material. Although she had no personal experience, she had seen the entire process before, after all, and a personal account made for the best material. In an instant, Lin Weyan had forgotten her worries. Unexplainably, Yi Zixu began to pour her heart out to Ana's sister, speaking of things she could not tell those close to her, not her father nor In Mei, who were prone to taking venting too seriously. But she was unafraid with Lin Weyan. She was not worried that she would tell Ana, who already knew everything. Lin Weyan was indeed a good listener. Although nothing stood out in their conversation, the feel of the conversation gave Lin Weyan great inspiration. After a long, pleasant conversation with Yi Zixu, Lin Weyan felt that she had made great breakthroughs. How could she not have discovered such wonderful things previously? Inspiration came from life, and art was greater than life. Lin Weyan immediately called Ana on the Skylink. Of course, one need not stand on ceremony with one's own sister. "Sis, are you busy? Spare me some time." "What's up?" Ana looked at Lin Weyan's cheeky expression with mild amusement. Lin Weyan looked at Ana through the Skylink with a frank gaze. "Sis, you really are becoming prettier and prettier. I'm almost swooning with love for you." Ana's smile was dazzling, like a clear pond in the misty mountains. It cut through to one's heart. Ana blinked. "Out with it. What trouble have you gotten into this time?" In front of her, an Aslan official approached and tapped his wrist with a finger, reminding her that the meeting would begin soon. "Do you miss him?" The question stunned Ana. She said nothing for a long while, her mind full. Some were instantly suppressed emotions. As a princess, she knew that she had to control herself, and she always guarded against that control slipping. But Lin Weyan's one careless phrase had opened the doors in her heart. "I am a princess. Why must I sacrifice myself? Why must it always be conflict? Why must I care so much about the opinion of others?" "Sis, are you okay?" Ana, who had been quiet for a while, smiled radiantly. "Weyan, thanks, you're braver than I am." Although Ana had to attend a meeting, she felt renewed. For the sake of her goal, she had recently become compliant, living up to others' expectations of her as the perfect, dutiful princess. But was this perfect? If she kept it up, she would lose herself. Little Weyan paused for a moment. She didn't feel like she had said anything, but she recalled the look in Ana's eyes. It seemed to have changed somehow. A mechanically, rule-abiding princess led such a colorless life. One should not always have to be concerned with judging matters of black and white, but lead a colorful life. Although she had never had the experience before, she was not about to care about the opinion of others. She would just write her feelings out. Even if nobody liked it, it would still be her. After all, the last disaster did indeed express someone else's feelings. In a flash, inspiration burst forth for Weyan. Lin Weyan caressed her tear-stained face. It was the first time she had found the inner spirit for a love song. When she first debuted, the love songs she sang were catchy but devoid of meaning. "Your Highness," Angela had no idea what had happened. Could it be too much stress? She had long said not to mind the haters, who enjoyed nothing better than to watch the world burn. At this moment, Lin Weyan began to lightly hum a melody, pensive and light, a simple tune that spoke directly to the heart. "This is but a little, simple love song, which sings of the way the heart twists. I think I'm really happy when I feel your warmth. The air beside my feet starts to twirl. This is but a little, simple love song, which sings of the dove that flutters in our heart. I think I am suited to sing praises. Youth floats in the breeze. Even if the whole world was taken hostage by loneliness, I still would not run away. No one escapes the ravages of time. Instead, I will write of the palace where time and the sound of pianos come together. This is but a little, simple love song. Everyone grows old in the end." "Your Highness," it was the first time that Angela had lost herself in Lin Hyan's voice, and she felt tears well up in her eyes. "My new song, the title track of my new album." Lin Weyan turned her head back. Her tear-streaked face made one's heart ache for her, but her mouth was upturned in a smile as bright as a flower. Early on the second day, everyone was woken up by the assembly bell. They began the most grueling training that was utterly devoid of any skill. This was no qualification, this was a recruit's hazing. Everyone rode their own mecha and advanced through the most basic drills. precision aiming, strafe shooting, obstacle shooting, and the fundamental stabbing drills that was most common among exercise troops. The high and mighty competitors were fuming and chafing at the training. Earth's training is unbelievably mundane. They're treating us like recruits. What's the point of this? We barely started the training, but it seems it's already time to leave. We can't train here forever, it's a waste of our time. When are we going to get something difficult? Earth is such a low difficulty level place. When the afternoon training was over, everyone fumed as they ate. At this juncture, the canteen broke out into an uproar. Someone was fighting. The ruckus was between Achilles' team and Lai Shin's team. Otto's had long been giving Luo Fei the evil eye, and had tripped him when he passed. The food was scattered all over the floor. The fatty smiled as if it was nothing, but a Martian would never let such an incident pass. Lai Shin gave Carl a look, and Carl immediately went over and flipped a table. Unbelievable. It had always been the Martians who started things. Who would dare to pick a fight with them? Fatty was equally callous, immediately attacking at vulnerable spots below the belt. He gave no consideration to any fair notions of one-on-one and directly took Otto's down. The Moon team originally thought it was a one-on-one, and, when they saw Fatty move, could not hold themselves back. They swarmed up as one. Suddenly, the canteen was transformed into a chaotic battlefield. By the time the troops arrived, the canteen had been turned into a garbage dump. Chu Si watched the melee dispassionately. Achilles wanted to stop the fight but did not. Lai Shin held back, afraid of exacerbating the matter. Taros was brawling, and Rastin had no choice but to block him, attempting to keep the fight fair. Lai Shin and Achilles would not intervene unless matters got out of hand. Both had the presence of mind to realize that they should hold back. Everybody, gather. Upon Chu Si's command, everyone, both fighters and onlookers, hastened over. Wang Jung and the rest had also finished eating. They had watched the show through their meal with detached interest. I was about to announce this in the afternoon, but I assume you all already know. The second round of IG qualifications requires a leader, one choice each from Earth, the Moon, and Mars. Achilles, Lai Shin, Taros, Rastin, for brawling and failing to stop such childish behavior, are hereby eliminated. But by the rules, at least 2 nominated leaders must participate in the contest, so. Chu Si's words left Achilles and Lai Shin pale. They had thought that Chu Si would merely scold them and let them off with some token punishment, but to come to this. In the 3 stages, whoever took down 2 leaders could compete for first and directly become a leader. If all 3 fought to a draw, there could be a tiebreaker. Each step was crucial, and one had already been eliminated. Didn't it essentially mean that Lear was almost confirmed to win? Lear, Wang Jung, step forward. Yes, sir. Lear was unsurprised, but Wang Jung had blanked out for a moment, although he did not particularly mind. According to the last test's results and the Desert Trek scores, Wang Jung was determined to be a leader candidate. In the training to come, whoever wins will receive Earth's vote. Furthermore, the victor, regardless of whether they eventually become a leader when compared against the vote from Mars or the Moon, can receive an invitation to enter the Galaxy IG as a representative of the Solar System Federation. As this round's leader, he can choose a person to compete with him. His announcement shook them like a stone that broke the calm surface of the water. Everyone had slogged it out for so long and fought for so long, all for this. Suddenly, it was decided. The Moon crowd was astonished, while the rest was afire with excitement. The important thing was not the eliminations. It was the later half of his statement, that one person could be chosen for promotion. This was the privilege of a leader. My God, instantly, Wang Jung became the center of everyone's attention. Although Ares College had put up a decent performance, no one actually took them seriously, beside the 5 famous experts. Of course, this focus shifted quickly to Lear, because Lear had no one beside him. As for the competition between Lear and Wang Jung, that was already decided. Whoever followed Lear now might be chosen by him to enter the next round. Suddenly, Lear became the beacon of hope for everyone. Lear needed to do nothing. One single slot was enough to gain him all these people's favor. Although not everyone who had made it here was suitable to be a leader, everyone had their own strengths that gave them a fighting chance at representing the solar system with distinction. All they needed was an insightful and knowledgeable leader. Achilles and Lai Shin were both too snobbish. Besides their own clique, everyone else was treated like trash. Achilles and Lai Shin exchanged glances. They both felt resentful but helpless. Milo and Lin Ruofeng both stared at Fatty, who was the very picture of innocence. He was the most spotless among those who had fought, and his mouth was still stuffed with half a piece of bread. There were so many paths to get to his table, but Fatty purposely had to walk past Otto's, and to glare at him as well. Wasn't this a purposeful aggravation? Achilles and Lai Shin were not stupid. They began to feel as though they had been had. But who was there to blame but themselves for their lack of awareness? Lear's face was still a mask of composure. Wang Zheng, let's work hard together. Oh, likewise, likewise. Lear shot a look at Meng Tian, and the corner of his mouth lifted. In the training to come, both of you have powers of observation and can raise questions to me, Chu Si said. This was the right of a leader, in order to facilitate their decision-making. In an instant, everybody's gazes were on fire. They had a chance now as well. It was no longer a monopoly between Achilles and Lai Shin. Although no one voiced it, it was not a nice feeling. Watching the Moon and Mars teams form alliances, it seemed as though the rest were mere adornments for them. No one had made it here by merely going through the motions. Chu Si grinned without realizing it himself. Achilles and Lai Shin had been foolish to bring so many escorts with them. Were they afraid that others would not know they were rich heirs? They had not only revealed their trump card for all to see, but also alienated others. They had not started off on the right foot. The Kronos family was not short on experts, but Lear had only brought a useless fatty with him. This was evidently the difference in how they did things. Martians and those of the moon would never defeat the Earthlings. As for Wang Zheng, it would not do to directly grant leadership to Lear, so he had picked the best scorer as a gesture to make things look more fair. Achilles and Lai Shin kept their complaints to themselves. It would serve no purpose except to further display their weaknesses for all to see. This round had been lost in too unjust a fashion. Judging by their abilities, under normal circumstances, they could definitely defeat Lear on his home ground. And upon returning to their own home grounds, where the stars would align in their favor, the odds were even better. Therefore, this round on Earth was crucial. They would never have dreamed that Lear would rise thus. They had been robbed of even the chance of a contest. To brawl during special training was indeed below them. Fighting for control over his emotions, Achilles watched Otto's. He had expended so much effort to get him back and had specially trained him for an entire summer, all only for him to lose control over his own emotions. A person who was rash and would react easily could never shoulder heavy responsibilities. All those involved in the brawl, the case has been recorded. You will all receive a 10-point demerit. Chu Si announced coldly, but this was now of secondary importance. The highlight was over. As expected, even Chu Si could not actually directly eliminate the brawlers. Lear already had a whole crowd flocking to him. They had suddenly realized how much easier and better Lear was to get along with compared to Achilles, and how could they have not realized this earlier? Wang Zheng's side was also obviously ecstatic. Wang Zheng, this is a once-in-a-blue-moon chance. Zhang Shan rubbed his hands with glee. Why pass up on a chance that fell from heaven on a silver platter? Wang Zheng, we support you. If you can beat Lear, you'll be so awesome, Yuan Yi chimed in. Compared to following Lear, they might as well support Wang Zheng, no matter how minuscule the chances of winning were. This had become a contest between Zeus College and Ares College again. Who was actually the strongest military college? Fatty's face was contrite as he walked in front of Lai Shin. I'm sorry, it was my fault. Lai Shin waved it off. Forget it. But Fatty shook his head. I can't just let it go like that. I'd better leave so that I won't bring you trouble ever again, and anyway, I like to follow the strong. And he left to fawn over Lear. Again. Lai Shin was stunned for a moment, her pleasant expression frozen on her face. Her morale had taken a hit. It looks like we underestimated Lear. It was a masterful plan to send Fatty to knock us down. Achilles smiled as though it was of no concern. Boss, this sucks. Achilles waved him to silence. Don't find excuses. We should have remained cautious in dealing with Earthlings. And besides, he hasn't won yet. Milo and the rest let their gazes fall upon Wang Zheng. You mean? Masashi suddenly laughed. We've always viewed Lear with disdain, but perhaps it is Wang Jung who has truly been shortchanged. One side was cool as a cucumber, the other was celebrating joyously. To Wang Jung, this would be a breeze. As the space-time project drew to a conclusion, the King Universal Space Company also entered a period of rapid growth. Once discussions had been finalized, it would enter the phase of practical experimentation. Upon completion, it would be time for it to enter the production cycle and reap the profits. From Xiao Fei's latest thesis, there was logical basis for the necessary conditions to begin practical experimentation. It could be said that this task had been a success. The moment Xiao Fei's thesis broke new ground, King Universal Space Company would enter the limelight of the universe and be reached out to by an endless number of venture capital big fishes. But when the first limited stock was released, everyone would be compelled to rush for it. As a result, the companies which had originally invested and financed the project, CT Group and Margate Interstellar Airlines, saw their stocks rapidly rise in value in various interstellar stock markets. For financial giants that had such huge capital reserves, every percentage point in stock prices meant that billions were being gained or lost. OMG and Little Lucky Star experienced growth as well. Although this was paltry in comparison to the two banking giants, it was nevertheless a good thing. The celebration banquet, by popular opinion, would be held on Earth. Eminent politicians and scientists from the Solar System Federation had received invitations. The space task's move towards the practical research phase spawned many different considerations. Most importantly, where would the factory be located? The Moon, Mars, and Earth all had different inclinations. Riding on the coattails of Yan Xiaoshu, and Mei and Du Qingqing were attending the banquet as well. Du Qingqing could not resist a rueful jab. If I had known, I would have been more shameless and fought you for it. And Mei smiled, secretly glad in her heart. And who was the one who laughed at me at the start? Petty, Yan Xiaoshu was also switching personas. In front of important people who appeared frequently on Skylink television, he was no longer a dunderhead, but a prim and proper man. Xiao Fei was the star of the banquet. She was the only one of the task team to attend. The rest would rather prop their feet up in the laboratory and play games than be bored out of their skulls at such events. Xiao Fei saw no way out of it. At times, the pursuit of science must give way to reality. If one did not show up to network with these VIPs, there would be no funding and no new doors would open. Yi Bingwen had brought Yi Zixu along for her own sake, to meet all sorts of new people and broaden her network. OMG's Wind God Mech's huge popularity had again enabled the name of OMG to shine brightly through the Milky Way. Furthermore, the success of the space task had set the company firmly on track to breaking out of the Milky Way system to new markets. The horizon was unlimited, and it made one feel as though a huge warship was steadily rising towards the skies. Representative Leslie, sir, regarding the OMG production base on the moon, I have been humbly waiting for your reply for a long time. Since I have chanced upon you today, I wonder if you could perhaps shed some light on the matter. Yi Bingwen brought up the matter lightly. Still no reply. I'll look into it. Actually, as long as the environmental regulations comply with the moon's legal standards, the rest should be nothing to be worried about. Of course, as per usual, the base's main employees should be chosen from the locals as much as possible. Leslie laughed expansively. The latest developments in OMG had naturally tipped previously ambiguous decisions into clear approval. May I announce the arrival of CT Group Vice Chairman Heaton and Margate Interstellar Airlines Group's Vice Chairman Alex. In an instant, a hush fell over the entire banquet. Besides the all-too-familiar War God Covenant, the CT Group was also involved in all kinds of businesses and operations. Their financial maneuvers were large enough to cause an entire country's economy to fluctuate. In truth, the Ares Alliance was but one operation under the company's flag. It was truly a financial carrier. As for the Margate Interstellar Airlines Group, it was an interstellar shipping enterprise that had expanded into a formidable financial giant within the Milky Way system, controlling the economic lifeblood of a few principalities. Any representative that stepped up bearing either financial giant's company flag was capable of shaking Earth's business circles considerably. To think that the respective group's vice chairman would personally make an appearance. The brief silence was immediately followed by a wave of enthusiastic greetings by prospective businessmen who were hoping to establish some form of working relationship with these two. Above the banquet, Solon's expression changed imperceptibly. After being at CT for so long, this was his first time seeing the group's top elites with his own eyes. Back when War God Covenant was still a small company, the CT group's financing was the reason it was where it was today. In truth, without the group's funds, the Ares Alliance could not possibly have handled the mecca of so many different countries. Chairman, sir, how do you do? I am the CT War God Covenant Solar System representative, Solon. It is an honor to meet you. Solon leapt at the first chance to offer his greetings. How do you do? Please call me Vice Chair. Heaton was clearly aloof, barely grasping his hand, with a business smile on his face devoid of much warmth. Margate Interstellar Airlines Group's Alex's smile was equally lacking in any real emotion. Surveying the banquet venue from the side, he said, Heaton, time ticks on. Let's get down to important business. Heaton nodded, and the two headed directly towards Xiao Fei. Professor Xiao Fei, how do you do? Congratulations on completing the task thesis development and refinement. Xiao Fei looked at the pair. Thank you. May I help you? The initial contract had been handled by these two. Alex smiled emotionlessly. Let's talk in a quiet place. It's regarding the issue of future cooperation. The initial plan had been a logical 3-year period of funding. Who would have thought that within a mere year, the task thesis would make huge leaps of development that outstripped the initial calculations? These two globally dominating groups each held but 19% of the stock each and lacked a controlling interest. It was clear that a new wave of innovation would shake the entire Milky Way based on the practical usage of this task. These financial giants hungered to participate and control such a task, like a wolf faced with fresh meat. Yi Bingwen and Yan Xiaoxiu had been called into the meeting room as well. The pressure rose inexorably. Stakeholders, the task is developing very smoothly. I think it is time to discuss future cooperation. Alex spoke without emotion. Frankly, this investment had been something they had not had high hopes for. When they had initially agreed to finance the venture, it was but a small fish within their wide nets. In the solar system, the media was abound with praise for them, but in truth, their analysts had calculated that this thesis would require at least a full decade to move towards practical application. He had secured a position for the group preemptively, but he did not expect such groundbreaking development to ensue within a year. It stirred the hunger in his heart. Why could he not control it all? Venture capitalism was no charity. It was about profit. And it was time to buy the entire task for themselves. Xiao Fei smiled coldly. Gentlemen, the fundamental condition that we discussed previously was that my research team would hold 51% of the stock. This is the bottom line, and anything less than that need not be discussed. Professor Xiao is very direct. However, have you considered the problem of future funding? The $20 billion Federation dollars have been declared already, right? My side agreed to fund the research task with up to 3 years' worth of funds. Now that the research task has been completed, my side has held up our side of the agreement. It is now time for talk of a new agreement. I am afraid that the esteemed researchers are not qualified to lead the practical experimentation phase of the project. This involves not just physics, but all kinds of finance and technology, aspects which only we can accomplish. You need not concern yourself with those. This task does not need more investment, Xiao Fei said coldly. She had thought they came to bargain in good faith, but his tone had convinced her otherwise. Naturally, we are concerned. We seek returns on our investments. Future investments will require funds hundreds of times larger than the research phase. A year of investment could easily reach hundreds of billions. Has Professor Xiao considered this? Alex said knowingly, seizing the initiative. Xiao Fei paled. Funds were indeed a dangerous pitfall. The research costs were still reasonable, but once they moved into practical experiments, daily expenses would require exorbitant amounts. We can use future evaluations of the stock to allow the whole Milky Way to invest. Xiao Fei asserted. She was very clear that if she backed down now, she risked losing control forever. Yan Xiaoxiu and Yi Bingwen were afraid to intervene. They held 3% and 8% of the stocks, so they had little right to speak up here. Kiki, Professor Xiao Fei, you seem to have forgotten that our agreement is a restricted contract. Without our consent, you cannot enter the market. Alex smirked. Capital manipulation was a game of bigger fish eating smaller fish, and these people were completely unable to hold their own. All who were present finally understood the reason why these two financial groups had so meekly agreed to the stock division. Clearly they had held this up their sleeve from the start. Without a way to enter the market, deliberate pressure and false rumors from the two financial groups could force them into compliance, and OMG and Little Lucky Star would take a hit as well. Most crucially, even if they took no offensive action, cutting the source of funding would be pressure enough. OMG and Little Lucky Star's resources in the coming phase would be like spitting into a bonfire. Whereas the two financial groups had time and money to spare. Those who come have no good intentions. Those who have good intentions will not come. Xiao Fei and the rest finally understood the situation that they were in. Consider our conditions carefully. 50 billion is no paltry sum to you. Xiao Fei sat quietly for a beat. The major shareholder is not here. Alone, I cannot speak for us. Kiki, we'll give you a week. Alex and Heaton were in no rush. The more this dragged out, the more pressure was on the other side. All preparations had been made, and they would soon understand what it meant to encounter walls wherever they went. Such research tasks not only required huge amounts of funding, but needed channels and influence in various aspects. Without the option of entering the open market for funds, this task was a sitting duck. Majority stakeholder? No one could save them now. This was but a small project, with no guarantees of success. Heaton and Alex were chatting cheerfully with each other. To them, this was a holiday, and they planned to soak in the sights on Earth. Faced with the overbearing Heaton and Alex, Xiao Fei and the rest could only hem and haw while they sought for a solution. Heaton and Alex had already changed roles from guests to hosts and laughed carefreely as they sauntered around, while Xiao Fei and the rest could not even muster a smile. This matter was fairly serious. Within the meeting room, Yi Bingwen, Old Yan, and Xiao Fei were in the midst of racking their brains. In the business aspect, Yan and Yi had more ideas. OMG and Little Lucky Star were less concerned. Attracting investors and striking out on their own yielded the same possibilities of huge profits, but at the expense of equally high risk. Developing a product from theory to practical use was difficult, and to achieve commercial uptake was particularly difficult. Furthermore, to do so was to insult these two huge financial groups. If they let their stock go, they could also earn a tidy sum through selling off their shares. Little Lucky Star had no such inclination, but for OMG, such finances would further subsequent research and promotion a long way. Xiao Fei looked towards Yi Bingwen. Old Yan had no clear ideas, and Yi Bingwen was the best hope in the larger scheme of things. Xiao Fei, any thoughts? Yi Bingwen wanted to know Xiao Fei's inclination. No sale. Absolutely not. Mr. Yi, do we have any other options? Xiao Fei was firm. It would rankle to have the fruits of their research snatched away. Even worse, once these businessmen had their hands on the technology, military, and not public, usage would be on their agenda. Even if selling brought greater profits, this was not something that Xiao Fei was willing to accept. The purpose of this research was to improve the convenience and safety of interstellar travel, which was her future research direction. Yi Bingwen nodded. I understand. Given present circumstances, it seems very difficult, but we must try regardless. We must first stall for time. All they did just now was in part intimidation. If they really wanted to clean us up, they would not have bothered bandying with us. Old Yan here should be experienced in market tips and tricks. Haha, not so much intimidation, but they sure showed us the carrot and the stick. Yi, please help us think of something. My little brat said to follow teacher Xiao Fei's lead in this. Old Yan laughed. He still held his cool in this matter, although the Little Lucky Star of the past could never have dreamed of being in such a titanic struggle. All right, we're of the same mind then. Let me try what I can. We're sitting on a mountain of gold, and we don't have to be afraid that there won't be miners. Outside, Yan Xiaoshu and Yi Zixu were unburdened by such concerns. Yan Xiaoshu was eagerly singing praises of the wind god, to the point where Yi Zixu became a little embarrassed. Second brother, that's too exaggerated. The mech actually still has many shortcomings. It needs another iteration of refinement. The performance in CT is relative to mature power. In actual usage, environmental fluctuations and operational wear will definitely lead to instability. Yi Zissou said. Haha, don't be modest. I've used it too. Oh, that reminds me. Why couldn't I engage the emergency energy shield? It seems like many people have the same problem too, Yan Xiaoshu asked curiously. He was a mecha geek as well, and he would definitely support Yi Zissou's design wholeheartedly. That was not an intentional design. Yi Zissou waved it off irritably with a bitter smile. She had no need to conceal anything from Yan Xiaoshu. Yan Xiaosu's jaw dropped. Not in the, what blasphemy was she trying to commit? Wang Zheng was indeed about to commit blasphemy himself. Lai Xin was in front of him, looking for a private chat. Between the two beauties in this training, Lai Xin and Meng Tian, Lai Xin's halo was a little more radiant. Her family was prestigious and she was sexy and outgoing. In comparison, Meng Tian was a little reserved and adopted a chilly manner to everyone. Wang Zheng, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Lai Xin sized him up. After being outmaneuvered by Lear, Lai Xin's rage had cooled sufficiently. Other people had seen the flaws in Lai Xin's leadership, but the truth was that they had been deceived by the wretched Fatty. Fatty looked like a wallflower. But if he really was a wallflower, how could someone like Lear keep him by his side? Her overconfidence had caused errors in her judgment. She had dismissed Lear from her concerns and accepted Fatty, secretly wanting to show off. This Fatty needed to be taught a lesson when the moment presented itself. For now, she needed to turn the tables. She had no idea what Achilles was thinking, but failure was not an option for her. Victory and defeat hinged on the events on Earth. Whoever took the Earth qualification would be unbeatable back on the main stage on Mars. Although she was out of the running for the leader contest, it in no way meant that she could not demonstrate her own leadership skills. Wang Zheng, you and your friends can't beat Lear. That guy isn't just wily, his ability is on par with Achilles and mine. To beat him, we should team up. You and Zhang run and join my team, and we'll all go to Aslan together. This lineup is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Lai Xin said. She truly did not want to join with Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan, and Meng Tian was not her cup of tea either. She was truly Meng Ao's daughter, with her cold personality and similar ability. As for Zhang Shan, he was trash. His paltry displacement ability was of little use. Wang Zheng smiled and shook his head. We'll be fine as we are. If we don't try, who knows how the outcome will be. Oh, you're pretty confident, huh? Lai Xin said mildly. Although I've no idea where you get that confidence from, I'll only ask once. Think carefully on your answer. If you want to go to Aslan, only I can bring you there. Fundamentally, Lai Xin always held her head high. Even when giving her approval, she expressed it in a way as though it should be an honor that she bestowed. Wang Zheng's smile was still firmly fixed on his face. If there's a chance for us to battle together, that would indeed be quite an experience. Looking at Wang Zheng's retreating profile, Lai Xin huffed. This fellow was really arrogant. Did he really think he was something after exploiting a slip in the system? He was still far from being able to compete with Lear. Pride came before a fall, and then he would come crawling over to beg her. With her help, Wang Zheng could beat Lear and earn a direct invitation. Of course, the other invitation would be accorded to her. This was a mutually beneficial arrangement. What made him think where did that confidence come from? Lai Xin turned away without a care. To her, a small setback did not affect the larger scheme of things. Lear was an earthling after all. Wang Zheng, what did Lai Xin want with you? Does she fancy you or something? Zhang Shan asked privately during their mealtime. This was indeed a development. Kiki, nothing much, she just wants to use us, is all, Wang Zheng replied between mouthfuls. Oh, what did you say? Meng Tian and Zhang Runan looked over as well. Meng Tian was especially concerned. Although she wasn't sworn rivals with Lai Xin, they did not get along too well either. Wang Zheng shrugged irritably. I wasn't born to live the life of a slave. Forget it. That girl's airs are too much to deal with. Oh, I understand now. She only has eyes for this opportunity that we have and is trying to use us. Fat chance. If she joined us, we'd only make her do the grunt work. Zhang Shan laughed. The marvelous turn of events had caused Zhang Shan's aspirations to grow rapidly, like spring bamboo after the rains. This was a God-given opportunity. Lear was not alone either. Besides Luo Fei, Lear had chosen 3 out of the rest. Edison, a Loman, and Stalker. Edison's forte was electronics and technology. He hacked Skylink firewalls as a hobby. In other aspects, however, he was ordinary. Aloman was a conceited strongman from Titan. Privately, he was confident that he could take down Rastan. Stalker's ability X allowed him to breathe underwater, but was also otherwise unremarkable. This caused a few hopefuls to lose heart. Lear's selection was indeed niche. Luo Fei's actions had been heartless, and they were etched clearly in the minds of the Martians. If it was not for the rules in effect, they would have long beaten him to a pulp. But as it was, he ate and drank unmolested, even having the cheek to call out greetings to Martians. His personality was indeed infuriating. It almost seemed as though his skin was so thick, his cheek could fly a shuttle all by itself. Following Chu Sis' appearance, the afternoon training began. You've all been training on Earth for quite some time now. We'll be doing something new this afternoon for a change. It'll also be the first task in the leader selection. After Chu Sis' words, many an eye in the audience brightened. After endless torture, finally they would get to test their skills out. Wang Zheng or Lear, besides them, of course, Achilles and the rest were not invalid either. Although they had no chance at the qualification, they could nonetheless prove themselves. In the end, IG qualifications were determined by one's abilities. Without top-tier strength, one could not go far. Cheap tricks only worked once. Everybody assembled on the training ground. Chu Si surveyed the bunch of youngsters in front of him emotionlessly. They had indeed demonstrated their grit in taking grueling training. Their futures were bright and unlimited, but for now his role was to pile on the rigor and subject them to all kinds of mental and physical stress. You have all developed some familiarity with the mecha. We will now test the fruits of your training. 1,000-meter race, while defending against interference. The terrain in front of them had been constructed full of sandpits. Within the 1,000 meters, snipers had been positioned on the left and right. They had to break through under the 2 marksmen's interference. In Chu Sis' words, this training was a breeze. In the actual battlefield, no one would tell you that there were 2 snipers. The 2 training venues began at the same time. This was also a contest. Whether by design or coincidence, Carl was matched up against Masashi. Under such circumstances, team members were definitely pleasantly surprised and would work harder. This was a test of mecha maneuverability and reaction time. Each sniper would only fire once. A hit meant failure. Masashi and Carl were both skilled. Their bota type versus growled loudly and burst forward in the same beat as the starting gun. The desert training was treacherous with uneven ground. At the same time that one was accelerating, one had to be careful of one's footing, all while reserving some spare power. Both mech warriors were advancing at a rapid pace when a gunshot rang out. Both instinctively engaged in evasive maneuvers. However, it was but one gunshot meant for one target. This was also a test of judgment. Whoever had ducked meaninglessly had squandered their opportunity to further the lead. But not many people could judge that accurately, and Masashi and Carl both did well, dodging the sniper fire and arriving at their goal. Masashi, 4 minutes 20 seconds. Carl, 4 minutes 35 seconds. Both were equally skilled, but when the sniper had attacked Carl, Masashi had made the correct call not to dodge and had pulled away with the lead. This was a demonstration of judgmental skill, not luck. If he had made the wrong choice, he would definitely have gotten hit and disqualified. Masashi and Carl had effectively been guinea pigs for the rest. To the students, they were unafraid of face-to-face battles, but to fall to a cold gun was an unsatisfying end. But like it or not, they had to adapt to it. The previous position of the snipers was not relevant. Within the range, they could fire at any time. Everyone went up one after the other. On the whole, the Moon's competitors performed the best, with the 8 stars timings all slightly above 4 minutes. They boasted consistently higher averages, while other average people clocked in at 5 minutes and above. There were some close moments with the sniper fire, but basically everyone had made it through. No one had received a direct hit, and this was expected. After having been preemptively warned of snipers, To take a hit meant one might as well pack up and head home. Raston's time was average, at 4 minutes and 5 seconds. In light of his previous eligibility as a leader, this time was slightly poorer than expected. Speed contests were not his strong point. However, his performance throughout was stable, and his decision-making had been on point. Taros flexed his speed abilities and was the first to break the 4-minute mark, clocking in at a dominating 3 minutes 40 seconds. The Bata Type 5 mech was like a ghost in the wind under his steering. Even under the sunlight, it moved with a ghastly manner. When dodging the attack, he was sure and composed, clearing it without problems. Like it or not, this was Taro's forte. After Taros crossed the finish line, he received quite a few cheers. In the military, ability spoke louder than pretty words. Lear and Wang Jung had been put to the back. Evidently, the leadership contest was reserved for last. It was Achilles' turn. Everyone watched with anticipation. He had led the pack all the while. Although he had to shoulder the responsibility of the brawl, it did not stop him from displaying his strength and character. One had to ride it to know if it was a mule or horse after all. They wanted to see what was so special about the sun god. The contest had started. The Bata Type 5's engine roared. Competing against him was Lin Ruofeng, who clearly felt the pressure. He snuck a glance at Achilles beside him, who stood still as a mountain. On the starting gun, Lin Ruofeng aggressively moved, the Bata leaping forward like the wind. His takeoff speed was fast. But in that instant, the Bata mech beside him was already gone with the wind. Achilles had left him in the dust. God! What unbelievable speed! Achilles' Bata Type 5 mech was advancing at a blistering pace when the gunshots rang out together. Both gunshots had been aimed at Achilles. This guy was just too dangerous. Under normal circumstances, each person was allocated one shot. If one judged that way, Achilles would be finished. This would rock the boat drastically and cause him to lose face no matter the reason. But the Bata Type 5 made no move to evade. As if time had frozen, the mech unbelievably put on a burst of speed, leaping forward and evading both shots. It roared forward, the desert terrain not even hindering Achilles' movements in the slightest. As though running over flat ground, he cleared the course at 2 minutes 59 seconds. Right as he crossed the finish line, Achilles had already taken his hands off the controls, timing it perfectly. Behind him, Lin Ruofeng was laboriously moving forward. His pace had been thrown off horribly by Achilles. Against someone of similar ability, he could pace himself thus, but against Achilles, to attempt to follow his pace only meant trouble. Lin Ruofeng was almost hit by sniper fire as well and finally finished at 4 minutes 50 seconds, clearly below his usual standard. Everyone's jaw had dropped. What kind of monster was this? Would they really have to go up against such a person? The Moon people did not cheer, they had smug smiles on their faces. This was Achilles, the Moon people's leader. Without such absolute power, how else could one stand as the leader of these choosy Moon people? Achilles' time on such a terrain was already heaven-defying. The little adjustment of the snipers had been noted by everyone, but to a pro, an additional shot meant nothing. As Achilles returned to the group, many of them looked upon him with newfound respect. At first, they thought that Achilles was beatable, but now they saw it was but wishful thinking. Lear and Wang Jung had to demonstrate some skills, or they would risk their leadership being in name only. In IG qualifications, a leader would never resign themselves to fate. One had to possess sufficient power to earn the respect of the members, or else they would run a disparate team with subpar results. Lai Xin was up. Achilles had applied enormous pressure on everybody, but Lai Xin was unconcerned. In terms of individual ability, Achilles was stronger than she was. This had long been established in Academy X. Lai Xin finished at 3 minutes 15 seconds, faster than Taros, and establishing her own ability. Her own advancement speed was just behind Achilles, and she did not mind. The Lai family's most terrifying skills were not on the racetrack. Because of the fight, the two designated leaders had been punished. However, in this qualification, a simple contest would reveal all. If either Lear or Wang Jung could not produce results, it would be a joke, and they would not be able to live up to the mantle of leader. It would be a meaningless title. In the end, the military would not let those who lacked ability lead a team in IG. That would be tantamount to suicide. Next round, Zhang Shan, Luo Fei. Fatty Luo Fei gave a cheeky grin as he climbed into the mech. Everybody hated him. Taunts were tolerated, but to be able to provoke Ottos into brooding silence was a whole new level of provocation. Lear merely looked at Luo Fei and nodded. It was time for Luo Fei to demonstrate his true strength. Zhang Shan knew that the contest was about to begin. It was just a fatty. It was time to show this bunch of louts the fruits of his summer holiday training. Both mecha readied themselves. Because many were reeling from Achilles and Lai Shin's strong performances, the level of anticipation for these two was not high. Many were already speculating about Lear's strength and whether Wang Zheng was qualified to pose like he did. A weakling who took up the spot of probationary leader would be grilled on the rack. No one wished for this to happen to themselves. Everyone was observing Wang Zheng as well. On the surface he did seem to play the part and was calm. Once a veteran showed their hand, everyone would immediately recognize their skill. However wretched Fatty was, if he was capable, it was a different matter entirely. Both mecha leapt forward wildly at an astonishing speed. Fatty took the lead in an instant. By their pace, they were both of high caliber. Fatty, especially, controlled his mech with decisive fury and was clearly at ease in anticipation of the sniper's fire. Everyone was a little taken aback by their speed. From the first phase scores, these two had poor foundations, but they seemed like completely different people here. Wang Zheng and Lear were both clear that Ability X users' capabilities definitely outstrip normal people. Some people were born to be warriors, just in different fashions. Zhang Shan and Luo Fei were definitely polar opposites. One was brash and extroverted, the other wily and reserved. But in this competition, both brought their full strength to bear. Neither sniper had fired. This, in fact, gave both racers pressure, as they did not dare to go all out. The onlookers checked the time. Not yet 4 minutes. This speed was bewildering. It was expected for Luo Fei to keep a few tricks up his sleeve, but when did Zhang Shan become so strong as well? They were almost at the finish line when the snipers made their move, the shots cracking out in the air. Luo Fei seemed to be unaffected, keeping his mech at the original pace. The attack had missed. Damn, what kind of lousy shot was this, to miss such a target? Luo Fei's speed had not changed and he had made no movement, which meant it had been the sniper's error. But Achilles and the rest had a glint in their eyes. This was the reason why Ottos had unknowingly been baited. This fatty has the ability to stealth, Milo said with interest. For the sniper to target him, the sniper needed to focus all his concentration to lock in on the target. But the target itself was prone to misperception. You thought you had aimed accurately, but a slight error for a sniper meant a huge miss. Zhang Shan was not the type to back down either. With a huge bellow, he rushed forward, forcing an increase in pace and dodging the first shot. But the second sniper now fired. For them to be assigned as snipers and miss both shots would be too embarrassing. Zhang Shan's move had pushed himself to the limit. His forced movement had reduced his speed, and although he drew ahead for a moment, Fatty soon overtook him. The hurdle of sniper fire had been crossed, and he needed but to reserve a little energy for contingencies. The sniper took aim at Zhang Shan's position. They must have really been taking the snipers lightly if they thought such a maneuver could avoid the attack. This shot was a sure hit. Besides the sniper, the onlookers had picked up on this as well. Rash action without consideration for the next step was a death sentence. Zhang Shan was about to become the first failure. Lai Shin's gaze flicked over to Wang Zheng. This way why she had been adamant about leaving Zhang Shan behind. Conceited and brash and without much competence. To die alone was no loss, but in a pinch, such a person could drag the whole team down to their deaths. At this time, a scene unfolded that left everybody stunned. The shot had missed. Everybody felt like their eyes were deceiving them. They rubbed their eyes. Zhang Shan's mech was still flying forward, having overtaken Luo Fei. 3 minutes 51 seconds. Everyone's mouths were agape. This was Ares College's Mountain Maiden? Damn, everything was rapidly devolving now. Hey, did my eyes play tricks? It seemed like his mech moved forward in an instant. You saw it too? Damn, I thought I saw wrongly. My goodness, for real? Displacement? The others looked towards Achilles and his followers, full of suspicion. Achilles, too, was reeling. To think that such an ability X user would materialize on Earth. Interesting. Displacement ability X, and to be able to move the mech as well. Somebody worth reckoning with has appeared on Earth. Achilles' calm features were uncharacteristically creased with a bemused smile. Displacement? The entire crowd broke out into discussion. Even Chu Si immediately took notice. Displacement ability was definitely a first-class ability X. Due to this ability alone, he could have been assigned special grooming by the military. Zhang Shan rushed past the point with a jaunty wave. Ha! That would show them. This was the true power of Brother Shan. Now no one would dare to call him Mountain Maiden. That was cool, Mountain Maiden. Yuan Yi and the rest cheered from afar, gesturing enthusiastically. No wonder Zhang Shan had been so cocky, his ability was so cool. Luo Fei's timing of 3 minutes and 54 seconds was also an excellent result, but it could only play second fiddle to Zhang Shan's displacement. Regardless, Fatty was still all smiles. Damn me, this ability is too awesome. The future poster boy of the military, Fatty said enviously. Zhang Shan laughed loudly. Fatty, you can consider supporting us. Of course, it depends on Wang Zheng's approval. Looks like friend Wang Zheng isn't as weak as we thought. Raston laughed. His temperament was similar to Wang Zheng's. Even though they were not in the same camp, he did not wish to become enemies. A tad unexpected. Displacement does expend a lot of energy. I'm starting to regret not coming to IG earlier. There are so many interesting people here, although that Fatty is the most dangerous snake, Lai Guang gestured. This is just the beginning. Testing one's basics and battling are totally different. This is looking good too, and it seems like Wang Zheng is hungry for it as well. Lai Xin stared at Wang Zheng. A pretty boy like you taking the lead? Prove yourself first? The second phase was indeed the domain of ability X users, but Dark Horse Zhang Shan had shocked everyone. Many abilities had their own limitations. For example, Stalker's underwater breathing ability was useless in certain environments, but Zhang Shan's had a high usability and was cool to boot. Suddenly, many people realized that Ares College was a force to be reckoned with after all. The next race between Meng Tian and Zhang Runan saw an average performance. This type of race was not their forte, and they both clocked in at 4 minutes. Nobody could be good at everything unless you were Achilles or Lai Xin. The highlight was about to start. It was time for Wang Zheng and Lear to race. These two untested leaders now had to prove themselves. Even if they could not beat Achilles' timing, they could not be too far off either. As they were climbing into their mecha, Lear suddenly said, Wang Zheng, actually, I've treated you as a worthy opponent from the start. Wang Zheng smiled but did not reply. Sometimes actions spoke louder than words. During the first phase, Wang Zheng had not spared much thought regarding the leader positions. He just wanted to go to Aslan and also pit himself against all kinds of strong opponents, although things were not playing out exactly as he envisioned. To them, IG was a battlefield. You either improved or were left behind. Rather than leave one's fate up to others, why not take control of one's own destiny? This leader role, he was interested in it. Come on, Wang Zheng, clean, I am up. Zhang Shan shouted without care, unheeding of what others thought of him. Meng Tian and Zhang Runan exchanged glances. Nobody actually knew Wang Zheng's true capabilities. Whenever something cropped up, he settled it without too much difficulty. The incident with the quicksand had been the only time he had shown his true strength. To be perfectly honest, the sight had blown them away. But how were his basics? The two Bada type versus readied themselves. The starting gun roared. Wang Zheng and Lear's Bada Type 5 mecha burst forth together, bearing down the course like a hurricane. Their speed bewildered the eye. Their unstoppable rush was equal to Achilles' speed. It had been a while since they had graduated from Academy X in these 3 days. Lear had always been unwilling to clash head-on, due to his preference to stay low profile. As a result, Achilles and Lai Xin had been lulled into a false sense of security. But this was the time to assert his dominance. Perennially keeping his head down was stifling, and that was not Lear's intention. What he did not expect was that Wang Zheng would actually keep up with his pace. Both mechas stormed down the lane at a frightening pace. Even the snipers were aghast. What manner of monsters were these? But after blanking out for a few seconds, they recovered and locked onto their targets, waiting for their chance. Against opponents of this caliber, they had to attack consecutively. Lear knew that Wang Jung had grit. He had sensed it in him at the networking event. Although it was subdued then, he felt it in full force now. Lear's Bata Type 5 mecha creaked, straining from the torque. The mecha was already rushing forward at full power, but its speed continued to increase. It seemed as though it would approach its speed limit soon. It was about to break Achilles' speed record. Suddenly in a flash, Lear glimpsed a shadow dart in front of him. Wang Jung was actually ahead of him. In this instant, the sniper's guns roared out, firing at both of them simultaneously. When one's speed was at a maximum, that was also the time when it was hardest to evade. But the two youths had more in store. As though they were reflections, both made a quick stutter step. With a minimal toll on their speed, they both evaded the sniper fire. At their terrifying speeds, the slightest mistake would have tripped them, a testament to their flawless speed control. They were really playing with fire, but both bullets thudded into the sand with a puff of black smoke, while the two mecha whistled past without heed, as though the shots were not even a concern. Their states of mind were undisturbed and their movements were unaffected. Whoosh! Both mecha arrived at the endpoint neck and neck in a spray of golden sand. Their forward momentum had been killed at the perfect instant. Such sublime control spoke of motor coordination that left one gasping in amazement. Lear, 2 minutes 56 seconds, he had beaten Achilles. But Lear had a hint of dissatisfaction on his features, because Wang Jung had beaten him by a sliver. 2 minutes 55.6 seconds, he had beaten Lear by a hair. As the two mecha headed back, the rest looked at them with a glimmer of respect. Clearly, reputation wasn't everything. Zhang Shan was unreservedly jumping up and down and whooping. Damn, who would still dare to look down on Ares College? Perhaps it was different in the past, but a new era had arrived. Chu Si was stunned. He clearly saw the fierce desire to win in the two. From the start, both had tried to throw off their opponent's pacing, repeatedly pushing their Bata Type 5 to the limit. It may have seemed like a blind pursuit of speed to the casual eye, but in truth, they had clashed with a high level of finesse. If it had been any other opponent, they could have lost without even knowing why. This standard was far ahead of the rest. This was power capable of being the military's trump card. These two were truly experts. Many only saw the results, that the two had beaten Achilles despite not using any ability X or cheap tricks. But the whole process had gone by so quickly. Even their stutter step had been done with the highest of efficiency and their movements executed with economy. Were these what they called polished diamonds? Although the rest were oblivious, the race between these two had been even more impressive than Achilles. Achilles was indeed refined. He executed movements with a graceful aura about him, but these two brought deadliness within their solid movements. The winner in this clash was Wang Jung, something that no one expected. The races continued, but the disparity in times only became clearer. Achilles' ego had taken a hit, but his face remained genial. The other Moon members were less calm. F***ck, if they had competed against Achilles, they would have been fodder. Damn, how dare they act cool, Otto spat bitterly. He was surprisingly vehement. After he was laid low, he had a persistently foul mood. It did not help that he was part of the reason why Achilles had lost his chance at leadership. Kiki, don't be too hung up. Speed is determined by one's opponent. Don't mind the gossip, Taro said scathingly, directing his comments at the others who still oohed and awed. Lear has played this hand in a dirty fashion. Too bad for him. Wang Jung rocked his boat and seized the opportunity instead. That guy definitely has a solid foundation. His control was smoother than Lear's, which decided his victory. To be honest, the sniper did not cut him any slack. He fired in the instant that he took the lead, which hurt his timing a little, but Lear still could not beat him. I'm more concerned about how much of his true strength Lear used, Milo said. The Moon crowd was not used to being relegated to onlookers. I hear Wang Jung has no ability X no matter how flawless his basics are, he's still but an excellent grunt soldier, useless. Lear looks indomitable, though. Achilles waved it off. Forget all that useless chatter. Focus on ourselves. Since Lear has started to get serious, then it's about time we do too. No matter how collected Achilles appeared, a trickle of anger simmered within him at the current situation as well. To what extent this rage would manifest remained to be seen. Taros narrowed his eyes. He had yet to meet someone more dangerous than Lear. His thinking was a full leap ahead of the average person, layered with complexities. But human calculations always bowed down before fate. Despite his machinations, he had not foreseen the unknown factor, Wang Zheng. In Lear's original calculations, Wang Zheng was a decent opponent to demonstrate his own abilities, and he would make himself look good in comparison. Yet now he had been the one to make Wang Zheng look good. This was the first clash of power since the beginning of the second phase. Wang Zheng's uncanny win had left Zhang Shan and the rest overjoyed, as though the leadership had been secured. However, the others soon passed it over in their considerations, and their focus was still on Achilles, Lear, and Lai Xin. Wang Zheng, that was great. From now on, we also have to work harder and take the win. The first leader from Earth is about to be decided, Zhang Shan declared with confidence. Although his score was not the best, his revealing of Ability X had shaken the field as well and was even more impressive than Wang Zheng's win. Now I also feel that we have a chance as well, Yuan Yi could not resist exclaiming. He had always thought Wang Zheng's chances of victory were zero, but today's performance had opened his eyes. Most importantly, the victorious Wang Zheng was still calm and was not acting any different than usual, as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Of course, some might think it was just him acting cool, but who cared? To Wang Zheng, beating just about anybody at a test of basic proficiency was to be expected. If he did not even have the confidence for this, how could he think of going to Aslan? The appearance of Wang Zheng's faction had heightened the atmosphere of competition subtly. Chu Si was not too bothered. The test was simply an evaluation of the results. The training would again begin anew. Mecha poles circling. In the uneven sand stood two huge, wooden pillars. The trainees had to pilot their mecha through the pillars, circling them as fast as possible. However, they could not touch the pillars. The battle-obsessed students felt a little let down. Clearly, this type of training was the most dry and dreary thing to them. However, Wang Zheng was interested. His body, adjusted to the plum blossom pillar, could easily execute the circling movement needed, but he still needed to get used to doing it in a mech. This could dramatically increase a mech's operational agility, especially in a pinch. The pilot's understanding of a mech was an often understated skill which saved lives in critical moments. A majority of the students were still resentful. More boring training. Wang Zheng was explaining the training objectives to his Aries college friends. They brightened up considerably after hearing his words. The key was that the training had to be useful. A guy like Chu Si only cared about getting it done, but did not bother with explanations. In the military market, OMG's Wind God mech was making astonishing progress, accompanied by stories that seemed overblown. The prototype was being subjected to a few military tests, and it performed spectacularly. Things had turned from lukewarm to serious, and the difference was clear. The performance standards were definitely there. OMG had provided a demonstration video which showed the skeletal structure, to explain the mecha's capabilities and unique strengths to the military testers. It had tremendous strength and speedy displacement, satisfying the needs of battle needs and strategies. In controlled conditions, the military testers unanimously gave its battle capabilities an AA rating. As for the protective shields, the three testers were in agreement. Although the chances of accidents were low, they were nevertheless present, and they remained logically necessary. If the mech could be refined to become more armored, the Wind God mecha could be used in a huge variety of situations and strategies. At present, they could already envision more than 10 types: confined environment group battles, dual mecha operations, specialized missions. When the military testers demanded changes the defense system, Yi Zixu was speechless. Although the mech was her design, the excess shield function was completely excluded from her plan. This was an ingenious advancement. Every mech had energy shields and naturally possessed the equipment to replenish and sustain these shields. However, this resulted in a curious reaction with the magnetic source, which had not occurred to her previously. Yet controlling this was very difficult. It would only absorb the remaining energy from recharging the source, and the heat control had a refractory period. Yi Zissou knew that the military testers only cared about their own pride, but the suggestion was not useful. It was difficult to pull off in experiments, let alone actual battle. As for the situation in CT, they simply saw it as a matter of difficulty. However, if this mech could stabilize its performance, it would be very well received among mecha users. Regardless, even if the excess shields were not stable, in the end, AAA rank evaluation results sat on Yi Zissou's office table. This was the final report written by 3 different S-rank testers. This was definitely of interest to OMG. Furthermore, it was unclear why the military had assigned 3 S-rank testers to OMG. It was a form of recognition for OMG's entry into the military market, and the final result had been excellent. The Army's order request was also in the process of deliberation. Although the quantity was modest, it was nevertheless a good start. The research team led by Yi Zissou looked at the evaluation report displayed on the large electronic board in the laboratory. The room was silent. A few had tears in their eyes. CT had just been a trial run, but the military's recognition had been a necessary step. In the days when the Wind God had faced suspicions and doubts and the researchers had been on the verge of being disbanded, sentiments had been varied. Some were young, some had more than a decade of work experience, and to take up work in a different laboratory was no big deal. With their professional standards, if they lowered their expectations a little, they would not lack work. Their only regret was that the Wind God was indeed something special, and everyone had invested blood and sweat into it. But finally, the moment of recognition had arrived for them. Recalling their prior hardships, there were a few runny noses and constricted throats in the room. Cheers! After a short emotional moment, it was time for reckless celebration. Documents and papers flew in the air, and they danced as if possessed. Both young researchers and old veterans expressed their joy through wild dance. Yi Zissou smiled tolerantly as she walked out of her office. She waited until the hubbub had died down, then said, "Listen to me, everyone. It's too early to celebrate. Was our goal just to get an AA rank?"
What? AA rank was not enough. Military certifications were strict. In the last decade, various large manufacturers had sent their products for grading. Only 64 models had achieved the A rank. As for the AA rank, only 6 had made the mark. These were the accumulated numbers of a decade. Now OMG had joined the A rank club. Was she still not satisfied? Set your sights higher. What's stopping us from joining the S rank club? Is my ambition too large, or your confidence too small? In the laboratory, Yi Zissou seldom made these stirring speeches. Everybody was a professional and would give their utmost in their jobs even without such rhetoric. But now, she needed more from them, for them to push past their limits and give her their very best efforts. More importantly, her mind was filled with that profile that moved like the wind. She had designed the perfect mecha for him. "Leader Yi, tell us what you want. We are yours to command." An elderly researcher spoke up. His gaze was bright. He lived for this work, and if they could create an S-rank mecha, it would be the crowning moment of his life. The younger researcher's eyes were lit up as well. Why not give it a go while they were young and able? Wasn't it a matter of just trying? Yi Zissou smiled gratefully. She waved the pointer in her hand and the projector screen in the lab changed. Data on the Wind God mech's usage during the CT period began to show. This is the weekly data report from when the Wind God was in court. Win rate, 41%. This isn't too exceptional. However, the Platinum and Diamond players' win rates reached 50.6%. This proves that our mech isn't just pilotable by those with skills like Skeleton. Any ordinary person, with enough familiarization, can achieve displacement. The rest depends on the ability to seize opportunities and one's grasp of battle strategy. These are the qualities that pilots have to develop, and they do not concern us that much. The room chuckled. Skeleton had become somewhat of a hero to the laboratory, although they did not come into contact with CT frequently. Yi Zissou continued, "The numbers match up to our predictions. However, the additional excess shields succeeded not more than 100 times in total. This is very, very low. Whereas in the military report." Another chunk of data appeared on the screen. A 3-line graph appeared, displaying the 3 S-rank testers' usage of the magnetic power source to power the shields. The average success rate was 11%.
and actual battle rates would be even lower. It was virtually useless. It is exactly because the excess shields were not stable that our wind god mech was unable to qualify for the S rank, a young researcher pointed out regretfully. We control our destinies. We shall not give up here. Yi Zisu's eyes were shining. Therefore, I have decided that the research group's next task is to deal with the problem of the energy shields. All the researchers were stunned, staring blankly at Yi Zisu. An old and sensible researcher frowned. Logically, funneling the excess power off magnetic-type power sources is the unique point, but to trigger the shield requires agile control from the pilot. Someone like Skeleton could do it easily, and it would have an advantage in court, but for the common person to use it this way would be impossible, wouldn't it? Moreover, this was an accidental discovery and not what we initially planned. Theory. In the end, it was all theory. Just like batteries, for example. In theory, a battery which required charging once every 10 days would really have to be charged once every 3 days. The other laboratory members nodded as well. The wind god's output levels had reached a sublime balance, and additional components could no longer be attached. In order to facilitate displacement, his shields were thin. Unless they wanted to take a leaf out of the War God #1's book and completely do away with shields? Yi Zisu smiled encouragingly. I know this is a huge challenge, but none of us are satisfied and ready to give up. I'm thinking that we can add on a few interesting design changes without any additional components that might affect the energy setup. Click. A schema and initial work plan draft appeared on the projector screen. Everyone was stunned. Would this work? Of course, this is still riddled with problems. I don't think the details will end up as I envision, and the arrangement of the mech might undergo an endless number of revisions. This is why I need the help of each and every one of you. Yi Zisu begged in a pleading tone. This design, it's ingenious, maybe it might just, even if I have to work through the night tonight, I want to come up with the first experimental module. Old man Chong, tomorrow is your wife's birthday, isn't it? You were supposed to be on leave. How about calling it quits for today? Yi Zisu shook her head with an exasperated smile. We've been married so long, there's no way she won't understand. It'll be fine. I'll call her up, she'll scold me for a while, and we'll be fine. I'll just promise to get her a promotional poster autographed by Lin Weiyan as a present. The old researcher had surged up with feverish excitement. It was possible, he still had years in him left. It was possible that, under the leadership of this woman, he would finally achieve the glory of creating a S-rank mecha. Without even pausing to celebrate, the entire research cell promptly threw themselves into the research for the Wind God 2.0. Yi Zisu was also immersed in her work. The image of Wang Zheng using the Wind God to fend off 100 enemies was still deeply imprinted in her mind. One day, he would emerge in the arena, and on that day, he would definitely have a mech worthy of being his battle companion. She would make the Wind God mech, a real god. After a week, the results of OMG's Wind God version 2.43 were out after countless minor revisions. It was now in the third iteration of the fourth major revision. It was finally returning positive feedback. The Wind God version 2.43's recharge through the magnetic source emissions was now able to produce a stable excess shield on the mech. The protective shield was no longer an advantage limited to Skeleton, although the strength and duration of the shield would depend on the mech pilot's abilities. This was a classic case of standards speaking for themselves. Mech design was not Yi Zisu's vocation, but a hobby from her childhood. Her imagination had been allowed to run unfettered when she was young, and she had learned much from the experienced maintenance master, Luomu. It enabled her to look at the mech from a different angle. Following the experimental model's data release, the entire mech production industry was again shaken. In such a short period of time, the Wind God mech had actually made enormous progress. All the time that OMG had kept their heads down and labored was now paying off. But regrettably, there was nothing but silence from the military. The Kronos family's influence had begun to assert itself. It was only a single mech model. The impact on the military seemed to be minimal, and thus they sided with the Kronos family. After all, the Kronos family was heavily involved in many facets of the Federation and held huge influence. It was unwise to offend them. Kronos' move was despotic, aimed at removing this threat to their most profitable industry. Kronos had been thoroughly cruel with this move. Within OMG,
The effect was already being felt, and senior members had begun to hand in their resignations. Yi Bingwen had foreseen this. Entering this industry meant encountering such setbacks. Those that left were not worth keeping around anyway. Besides, the core driver was the research team led by Yi Zisou. As long as this core remained firm, a little pressure in other divisions would mean nothing in the long run. The best defense against pressure was offense. Yi Zisou directly approached Solon with the newest data on their latest mech. Solon would definitely render full cooperation. Besides skeleton as a good reason, this mech had the best chance of becoming popular in other major regions. CT was definitely better in the entertainment sector. Whether this mech would enjoy popular success was not guaranteed, but CT was definitely a good place to set it up for success. As the Solar System regional president, it would be another feather in his cap. The shield was undoubtedly more stable than before, and it attracted countless pilots. This mech attracted those who wished to never stop and relentlessly plunge on. But in actuality, there was nothing too special about it. The Kronos family's influence was so deep-rooted that market penetration had virtually stopped, despite the initial recognition that OMG received. Even the huge conglomerates had been warned off. The mech was clearly promising, but purchase negotiations were lukewarm and non-committal. It was slowly becoming one of those critically acclaimed products that saw no real-world reception. No one would dare to risk offending the Kronos family over one mech. In actuality, this was a double-edged sword to the Kronos family. Their overly hardline approach had strained the relations in the industry. They had broken the rules of the game, but retaliation needed an opportunity to surface. No one would step up to be the first to challenge the Kronos family. Yet, this deadlock was very quickly broken. An Ozlon shuttle arrived on Earth without much ceremony, but the entire Earth was surprised at the people who walked out of it. It was the Ozlon military's FS Mecha research evaluators. Only a mech that had perked the interest of the Ozlon military could activate such an evaluation team. In other words, they could be interested in buying the mech. When the reporters received the news, they swarmed to the scene. Everyone felt that there might soon be something the prideful Earthlings could indulge in. "Excuse me, are you here on Earth for holiday?" The reporter's first question was asked jokingly, but it was indeed the fear of thousands. It would have been embarrassing to realize they had only been imagining things. The evaluation team leaders shook their heads slightly, with the air of elegance that one expected from those of Ozlon. "We're here about OMG's Wind God mech." Wow! Everyone present exploded in a cheers. Everybody knew of the fabled FS evaluation team because they were the advanced foreign mecha purchasers of the Ozlon army. Once they were dispatched, it meant the Ozlon military would buy. Is Ozlon really interested in a mech that hasn't been fully refined? Clearly, the reporter had a different opinion. "We'll decide how refined it is after the evaluation." The FS team left promptly, leaving a stunned crowd behind. "Quick, send the message out, the Wind God mech is about to go crazy. I'm chasing the details now." Reporters and editors screamed to each other over their Skylinks, chasing the news desperately. "Damn, I just sold OMG stock yesterday." The reporters that dabbled in stocks were howling in frustration. They had followed the Kronos family's lead, and, well, tears would not help now. The news shook the Solar System military as well. The higher leadership held back-to-back conferences, and at last, the Federation's Legislative Assembly joined in as well. The Federation Assembly leaders sternly dressed down a few of the senior leadership who had been sent by the Kronos family. Regardless of the result, the mech's development alone had indicated that it was worth supporting, and now it had blown up into this. No matter how formidable the Kronos family was, their domain did not extend outside. Once OMG broke into the foreign market, the Kronos family would be powerless to stop them. Especially when Ozlon was involved. One wrong step could lead to an external dispute. Most crucially, just as the Solar System was scrambling to increase its military reputation, Aslan's willingness to buy Earth's mech was a huge point of pride, and it had political implications. The Assembly's point was clear. Full cooperation would be provided from now on to open the doors for OMG. That very night, a few of the OMG applications that had previously been blocked were all awarded permits and approved. Yi Bingwen had even received praise from his shareholders. Once this deal with Ozlon was complete, the Kronos family would be forever powerless to sully the reputation of OMG's wind god. The next day, the public relations department of OMG was too busy to go home. All kinds of requests for interviews and statements flooded in one after another. All kinds of project requests that had been ignored for the longest time despite numerous attempts to connect now began knocking on the door looking to work together. Although they were so busy that their dark eye circles grew and their eyes became swollen, the entire PR department was gripped with feverish enthusiasm. Due to the Kronos family's interference, OMG's PR department had entered a slump and hit walls wherever they went. A few enterprising staff members had jumped ship, scorning that only fools and wastrels would remain. Who was stupid now? Who was useless? The solar system's star newspaper wants to interview the wind god's architect. At this time, it might have to wait until next Wednesday. Yes, Aslan Times has made a prior appointment with us. You see, yes, we're fully packed. The earliest would be next Wednesday. What drove the media craziest was the architect of wind god Mecha. OMG's next leader, Yi Zissou, the beauty who was only in her second year at university. In the higher tiers of the mecha design world, where the old and stodgy dominated, she floated in like a fresh breeze, attracting the attention of every media outlet. The wind god's prior success was already earth-shattering. This time it stood out proudly again as a completed product, and everybody was anxiously waiting on the Aslan FS evaluator's final decision. 2 days later, the FS team pronounced it Result S, which classified it as an S-rank mecha. This news took the Milky Way by storm. Everybody knew that the Aslan standards were fairly high. The same S rank from Earth meant nothing much, but Aslan's was held as quality throughout the Milky Way. Perhaps only 20-odd mecha had ever received the S rank rating from Aslan, and the solar system models had at best achieved A ranks. Although S was a lower tier within the S rank classification, it brought unspeakable glory as Yi Zissou's first mech model. FS's evaluation was: capabilities, superb. It requires expert control, and training difficulty is considerable, suitable for specialized warfare. Once this evaluation was announced, it meant that OMG's client base would no longer be confined to Earth's boundaries. Yi Zissou was about to shake the universe. I merely came up with the design concept. The bulk of the credit must be attributed to the team's collective expertise. Yi Zissou adopted a humble attitude during interviews. She had no interest in fame. However, she was clearly on the fast track to fame, given the way things were developing, especially after an album of her photographs were exposed on the net. These had been leaked by Yi Zissou's high school junior. They were of Yi Zissou participating in public high school events, as well as her high school graduation photographs. In an instant, she melted the hearts of countless mech fans. Even those not interested in mecha expressed thus: Yi Zissou was cuter than most idols. Most outstanding was Yi Zissou's passport photographs. Virtually every high school boy was enamored by her innocent beauty. Each vowed to enter Ares College in order to get closer to the goddess of their hearts. Even the elementary school boys were set thus. Target: Dawn Middle School, the path that their goddess once tread. Her team also didn't abuse her humble approach towards the interviews. They frankly revealed that the Wind God 2.4's modular core was the brainchild of Yi Zissou. Lab leader Yi is the most gifted mecha architect that I've ever met. I personally don't think much of those reports of her that are going viral. I hope that more people can have a professional eye to look past the young beauty and see the talent that lies underneath. Your article wouldn't be one of those, would it? The reporter laughed it off. Honestly, I'm afraid I can't. A university undergraduate, a beauty, and a genius in design who rose to prominence from nowhere. This was sensational news material. Who cared if every other report was gushing about her beauty? Why not take an original approach and present this heartfelt view? Many powerful countries in the Milky Way extended offers and invitations to Yi Zissou. Aslan invited her to attend networking events, while others took a more direct approach, dangling titles like National Scholar, in hopes of tempting her to migrate. Many colleges similarly sent her offers of matriculation. In their view, Ares College was a second-rate institution, and a military school to boot. Surely a talent like herself would be looking to move, right? Yi Zissou was also not military personnel, and Ares College had no business hogging such talent to themselves. Xiao Fei was the exception.
Although Yi Zissou was only a second year and a little too young, the policymakers were clear. This was a mech that enabled anybody to execute continuous displacement. Once its battle capabilities had been affirmed, the main designer would deserve every bit of recognition and then some. Besides, it was also a political move. Doors opened everywhere for OMG, especially for Yi Zissou. If it was not for her adamant refusals on several occasions, the rank of Solar System Federation Scholar would have long been announced for her. Zissou, it's the Federation Scholars, there are less than 1,000 of them in the entire solar system. Yi Bingwen felt a pang of regret. Many scientists held the title of Federation Scholar as their dearest ambition, working their whole lives to attain the proof and recognition the title entailed. Yi Zissou had flatly turned it down. In truth, second chances at such opportunities would not come. Yi Zissou demurred. "Dad, my ability is still lacking. Success this time around was in part due to luck." Yi Bingwen smiled knowingly. He felt proud as a father to have raised a daughter that could keep her cool when faced with the temptation of unspeakable glory. Far away in the Aslan Empire, Yi Zissou's name had also made an appearance in the palace's intelligence department. "Your Highness, this is the latest watch list. Lox Sha Liyun and Earth's Yi Zissou are the most noteworthy," the Imperial Chief of Intelligence reported to Aina. Although she did not have the authority to decide the list, she had been granted access to the list. Yi Zissou, elaborate. Aina was a little surprised. It was a familiar name, could it really be? "As you wish. Since your Highness also studied at Earth's Ares College in the past, you might have met before." On the slide, Yi Zissou's information streamed through the display: age, background, academic portfolio, achievements, and comments by the intelligence department itself. In summary, her work in mech design speaks of a rare talent, especially her latest Wind God mech. While it shares many similar characteristics to the Super X mech that the Intelligence's mech development department is currently researching, it is a cut above in the finer details. The Intelligence Chief's voice was measured and clinical. Aslan's strength lay not in pride, but in a clear understanding of its weaknesses, an appreciation of the strengths of others, and a willingness to learn. The corner of Aina's mouth quirked. It really was her. "Elaborate on this Wind God mech." "As you command." Seeing that the princess's interest was piqued, the intelligence chief retrieved the data from his Skylink. The Wind God mech is OMG's attempt to enter the military mech market. It possesses the capabilities to execute consecutive displacement. At its limit, it can surpass Atlantis' Shadow Stream mech. Of course, it has its flaws, which are considerable. In summary, as the first iteration of a mech, it is excellent, and it has much potential for improvement. This is the Wind God 2.4's modular experiment. Using the magnetic power source, it generates an emergency energy shield. It was apparent that the intelligence chief was singing the praises of this mech. Furthermore, it was not his personal opinion, but an objective report largely synthesized from the palace's best mech researchers. This is a clip of battle footage from CT, which is pertinent for reference. Lastly, the intelligence chief played a clip of Skeleton's 1 vs 100 battle. Aina glanced at Skeleton's ID, and her mouth twitched with a hint of infatuation. Longing welled up in her heart. Another week of training continued. Fights, contests, collision courses, each was a test so basic that it left them wanting. The moon side held their tongues. This was one confusing matter after another. They were the aces, not trash, but they had no choice. This was Earth, and military discipline compelled them. And then there had been the matter of Lai Xin and Achilles' chastisement. Everyone held their anger simmering in their bellies. In comparison, Wang Zheng and Zhang Shan had even attitudes. Zhang Shan was always up for anything and went through the training with hoots and yells of enthusiasm. He had now opened up completely, and he was extroverted to boot. The more people there were, the freer he felt. He loved this feeling and atmosphere. Wang Zheng was the very picture of pose. He had decided to contest in all seriousness and placed first by a comfortable margin in each task. Achilles and Lai Xin had been cowed. Even Lear was bothered. Wang Zheng dominated in every basic task they were set, whether it was trekking, maneuvers, or shooting. To sum him up, the classic model test scorer. Earth's training had long been criticized for its love of meaningless data. It was as though they thought impressive numbers could translate into actual skill, although their results on the battlefield were nothing special. Normally, even military discipline gave room for the development of individual specialties, but Earth's training excelled in killing any such individuality. It was frustrating, but it could not be helped. It was not that they could not beat Wang Zheng, but within the task constraints, their real abilities were suppressed. In comparison, Wang Zheng's basics were mind-numbingly strong, and this saw him to first place in each and every task. Earthlings. Many were privately unhappy that the Earthlings' outdated methods were not helping. The competition, apparently fierce, nevertheless proceeded under heavy regulation, and they were unable to really go at it. While the Earthlings were used to such an environment, the others, especially the Martians and those from Space City, were being exposed to a completely different style of training and felt cooped up. The day's training had ended, and the mood in the canteen was heavy. First place in every task had again been dominated by Wang Zheng, and everyone was more or less resigned to the fact. Yuan Yi walked over to Zhang Shan, massaging his shoulder. "Damn, you were wild today. What got into you?" Zhang Shan's training that day had been excellent as usual, and his improvement was steady. Most of all, his enjoyment was a sharp contrast from the general resentment. Together with his results, they invited jealousy and hate. TCH. It's only natural for someone with such excellent capabilities like myself to become something special. Zhang Shan was one of those who could never resist bragging. Will you drop dead if you don't boast? Boasting is healthy. In the military, men had to be strong, and Zhang Shan had long thrown humility away for good. A distance away, Otto's had a wild look in his eyes. His scores for the day had slipped. This had nothing to do with his abilities, but rather the stifling atmosphere. His heart chafed rebelliously. Furthermore, his temper had caused Achilles to lose status. Although Achilles never mentioned it, his looks and tone always seemed to hint at the responsibility. This had soured Otto's mood further. Their regal smiles faded from the features of the 8 stars. Everyone's performance had been unremarkable, free of errors but equally free of excellence. Conversely, this left them angry. Achilles was still tranquil. In the recent training, he had acquitted himself with distinction, although it still fell short of Wang Zheng's performance. His own foundations were already reaching their peak, but if he used ability X, it would seem like an unfair advantage, in bad taste. Lear's performance was similarly stable. It was generally excellent. It seemed that he was of the same mind as Achilles regarding their ability X, but, unlike Achilles, Lear was truly on track. The larger scheme of things were moving as he desired. The Martians were holding it together. The close watch by those of the moon reduced them to spectators of the boisterous scene. The more Otto's watched Zhang Shan, the more irritated he got. And then there was Lear and that fatty, Luo Fei. As for Wang Zheng, he had no basis putting on airs. He could only show off his basics and had no ability X. Only in Earth's training regime could someone like Wang Zheng shine. At this moment, he overheard Zhang Shan bragging to Yuan Yi about skills. He surged to his feet uncontrollably. Zhang Shan, shut up, will you? How dare a thing like you have the cheek to brag so much? Let me tell you, I could destroy you with one hand. A rotten place like Earth only breeds more trash. It lowers our standards. Instantly, the whole canteen fell silent. Some people had started to preemptively move the benches away. It seemed as though the situation was escalating into a fight. At this moment, Zhang Shan stood out with a crash. Hey, you sure have a big mouth. How come your results are so poor, huh? All talk, no action. The moment his words rang out, Otto's flew out of his seat with a clatter. He had been waiting for Zhang Shan to rise up and had been holding in his strength. He immediately used his ability X and, in the blink of an eye, appeared before Zhang Shan. In that instant, Zhang Shan felt a sharp, oppressive force rush towards him. Otto's was not one who could take insults. He understood how it was going to play out. Did Chu Si think he could hold him in line with his heavy-handed canceling of Lai Xin and Achilles' leadership status? Really? Were the Mars and Moon factions going to continue to take this lying down? Besides, he hated the mundane training. They could go on without him. He might as well go out with a bang and give Zhang Shan a good beating. He wanted to see if they would really disqualify the whole lot of them. If the solar system wanted to make a name for itself in IG, they needed Achilles and the 8 stars. No one else could do it.
Bang! Zhang Shan did not see it coming clearly, but he felt a fiery, stinging pain. Ato's ability, super speed. This was why he was part of the team. It was an important ability. In that instant, he slapped Zhang Shan in the face and followed it with a kick that sent Zhang Shan flying back. Bang! In an instant, Zhang Shan's fire had been lit. Military rules and discipline had vanished. There was only one thought in his mind. F***ck him. Bang! Zhang Shan pounced forward, a hand outstretched towards Otto's. Otto's looked at him with contempt. That kind of speed? Even a tortoise crawled faster. Yet at this time, Zhang Shan's body distorted violently and he disappeared. Displacement, but what would be the most advantageous location he would appear at? He activated his super speed once again. In the same instant, Zhang Shan leapt down from midair, towards what would have been Ato's back. Yet in that moment, Otto's had already circled behind Zhang Shan again. In a straight fight, Ato's ability trumped Zhang Shan's. Furthermore, Zhang Shan's ability use was still not fully mature, and he immediately suffered a couple of kicks. Otto's was purposely humiliating Zhang Shan, and he sent another slap whistling towards his face. In that instant, a figure exploded over like a hurricane, sweeping Otto's away. Zhang Runnen. I'll even fight you with one hand, you flee, Zhang Runnen stated coldly. There was no movement from the Moon faction, and Taros stood up. Unfair numbers, you gotta run that past me first. As he spoke, Taros made his move with no intention of hearing anybody out. Bang! Someone at Taros' level could stand against Zhang Runnen even without ability X at this moment. His eyes flashed. Clearly using his ability X, he appeared in front of Zhang Runnen, clamping down on her shoulder, but a huge wave of force roiled up at him. Bang! Zhang Runnen had lashed out with a foot and Taros had fallen. He had not anticipated that. Her ability was not rigid but fairly adaptable and flexible. Otto's had already leapt for the unprotected back of Zhang Runnen's head when a huge force came his way. Bang! Otto's was kicked away, flying over 10 meters and slamming into the wall. Wang Zheng had intervened. Otto's, you backstabber, if you want to die, just say the word. Fighting was no big deal, especially in military school. Unhappiness was settled with a quick scuffle, but Otto's had no boundaries. Achilles blocked his way with a cold smile. Wang Zheng, you talk too much. As he spoke, an enormous wave of energy shrouded the entire place. Achilles had made his move. Otto's crawled up from the ground, wiping blood from his mouth. Boss, if you want to be the gentleman, you gotta choose carefully as well. This bunch of trash are only fit to be slaves. Benevolent leadership be damned. The victor is the king. Whoever is strongest should be the leader. These earthlings only know how to play dirty, but they are weak. Otto's, you can eat rubbish, but don't talk rubbish. If you're not convinced, I'll beat you with both hands tied behind my back, Lear said. Boss, you need not concern yourself with trash like this. I'll clean it up with a few moves. Luo Fei loved hitting someone when they were already down. As they spoke, Ato's eyes gleamed again. His ability X reached a peak, and he rushed towards Wang Zheng, stabbing towards his eyes. Ching, his profile was frozen. Ato's fingers had been pincered by Wang Zheng. The speed of the attack confounded the eye, and the onlookers could not clearly catch what was going on, yet Wang Zheng had accurately blocked it. Crack! With an anguished scream, Ato's 2 fingers had been snapped. Wang Zheng patted Otto's on the cheek lightly. Boy, it's dangerous to play with fingers. He then threw Otto's away, completely ignoring the Moon crowd. No one expected such ruthlessness from Wang Zheng. Although Otto's played rough, in consideration of Achilles, nobody dared to go too overboard. Impressive. You've been holding back on us. Looks like I really have to experience it for myself, Achilles said coolly. Clearly the sun god was starting to get angry. Achilles was more serious than they had ever seen him before. He took a deep breath. Taros was right. These were not moon people, and he had clearly been using the wrong approach. In that case, it was time to show them the stick instead of the carrot. Masashi shook his head. He had wanted to intervene before, but things had now come to a stage out of his control. Wang Zheng smiled. The esteemed name of the sun god. But the name isn't too good. The sun means Ri. Are you telling others that you're Qian Ri?
Henry literally mean day, but also a slang for F*C king, and Henry is an insult, asking to be F*CKED. Zhang Shan's eyes gleamed. He clenched his fists and moved up wordlessly to back Wang Zheng up. Meng Tian also moved up quietly. The temperature of the place was rapidly dropping. Lai Xin clapped her hands. Achilles, your guy was too dirty. He holds nothing back in his insults and doesn't fight head-on. Besides, a couple of blows would be harmless enough, but to gouge at the eyes is really too much, isn't it? Rastin lazily shrugged his shoulders. Looks like there aren't too many gentlemen on the moon these days. In a short while, Lai Xin had made up her mind. This was no time to sit back and hope they would destroy each other. If she finished Achilles now, she would be number one. Achilles stared at Lai Xin with a cruel smile. I, and only I, can lead the Solar System Federation to break out of the cycle. It seems like I've mollycoddled you all for too long. On Mars, those that brag so much normally see their teeth punched out. Lai Xin stood up with an evil grin. Achilles' eyes suddenly exploded with silver moonlight. What a fearsome spirit. His unfathomable strength became a revolution of energy that permeated the entire space. Pressure like a huge mountain bore down on everybody's